Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Grid Talk podcast. This is the Qatar Grand Prix review. We get wording right this week. And as always, well, I say as always, it is now as always, we have Wajid and Paul joining us. We'll unmute Paul so you can actually hear him. How are you both?
I'm good.
He'll be given the keys to the kingdom soon.
Oh, but in a couple of weeks' time, he's doing it by himself.
Wow. It's nice, isn't it?
Congratulations.
Well, it's only Abu Dhabi.
You realise it's got to turn up on my own.
None of us care about Abu Dhabi. So.
And let's be honest, no one cares about the constructors either.
No.
And we care more about Formula 1.5 and the Deconstructors Championship.
Well, yeah, we do have. Well, we also have a very good Formula 2 thing to watch next weekend with half a point between a McLaren Junior going to Sauber and a Red Bull Junior who could or could not be in a seat. Tyler, welcome in. You made it. Yes, you have actually made the podcast at the start as well, because we've been rabbiting for about half an hour. Anyway,
probably
Qatar Grand, probably. The Qatar Grand Prix, absolute chaos, I think. Could be a good word for it, Wajid.
Shit.
Yeah.
Well, we will get onto that, but just so you all know, and this isn't just to do with us. Hi, hot dog. That's
so weird.
Yeah. Hot dog flavored water could be so nice. One thing I will say is, if you're here to watch an FIA rant, you might get one, but it is all about the Qatar Grand Prix and Abu Dhabi, possibly tonight, and then not tomorrow, because we're going to wait to see what happens in Abu Dhabi. But after Abu Dhabi, we'll be doing an FIA special on why we've still got 4 years of absolute chaos. And we'll be going through this year's chaos. And we'll also do a Christmas special where we all dress up like Santa. No,
we are the
I
reason.
don't think that was in my contract, I'm afraid. I'm going to have to consult my...
Hang on, you signed a contract?
And
apparently.
The other reason why there won't be an Abu Dhabi rant is we have to keep it all above board and make sure we don't get sued either.
Yes, we do have to keep it slightly on board. Wajid, name of the Grand Prix.
The Qatar. Oh, do you want Grand Prix? Right. Okay.
No. If I press that.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry, I knew I forgot to change something.
You're showing behind the scenes now.
To be fair,
I knew I forgot to
to
change
be
something.
fair, if I want it doing properly, I should do it myself, shouldn't I?
Wow.
Do you know what? Fuck off. How about that?
I didn't mean it like that. I meant if I wanted, you know what I meant.
Begins.
Anyway,
3 minutes.
Obviously, if spoiler result, we also had a sprint race this weekend, which was as same colour your dishwasher is after your Sunday roast dinner. We'll get onto that, especially over summer, on why we shouldn't be having any sprint races. But we will start with the first things first, because we've got to get into it. Max's revenge, stroke karma. If you were listening to the radio, you would know all about what this is about. But obviously, Max Verstappen went on to win the Qatar Grand Prix at a canter in the end because of issues for Lando Norris, issues of his own making, as we'll get into a little bit later on. But Max Verstappen, nowhere in the sprint, really. Had a terrible start, absolutely nowhere. And then came through to almost dominate from qualifying to the race end. Wajid, we've said Red Bull aren't the quickest car out there, but it's never been so far off that it's not kind of competitive. It's had the odd race, but it's always been there, hasn't it?
I think people have been massively outplaying how bad this car is. Yeah, if you compare it to last year's car, yes, it's not as good, but people have been making this out like it's a late 90s Tyrrell or a Caterham or a Marussia. Like, that's the extent. Like, it's not just because it's not been as dominant. It's been slightly more competitive season. It still doesn't mean it's not a bad car. And I'll be honest, Saturday qualifying too. I don't know where the pace came from all of a sudden, because Friday under the sprint, Red Bull were absolutely nowhere, and then I don't know what happened in quali 2. It's like the perfect amount of grip showed up for the Red. It's like they found the perfect grip level and perfect time, whatever else, and the car just came alive. Because for all intents and purposes, it looked like, I'm sure we'll get into it. It looked like McLaren were going to wrap up the constructors' title in Qatar. Obviously, that didn't happen, and like, I don't know if you guys can. I don't know where the hell that pace came from all of a sudden, and then cool, the race ebbed and flow and stuff, but he was comfortable, especially after the penalty. He was totally comfortable.
Yeah. Paul, your view on where Max's speed come from?
Well, I think these cars have been notoriously difficult to set up, and they also have very narrow operating windows when they are set up. So I think what happens is when you have a sprint weekend, all the teams obviously get less time in free practice to spend that time on full tanks and on qualifying runs and in race simulations. And they need all of this data because then they're able to figure out which way they're going on the setup. And they can make all of those changes, obviously, through free practices. And when you've got 3 of them over 2 days, different weather conditions, you've got a lot of data. When you get one, and it's very quick, and then you're straight into sprint qualifying, and then you're into the sprint races, there's a lot less changes able to be done, right? They've been parked firm conditions. They can't go and do what they would normally do over the 3 practice sessions. So I think sometimes, and this is the craziest level we've seen all season, but we have seen other teams go into a sprint and look really bad, and then Mercedes are a good example, and then come the race they go, actually, we found all this. Where the hell did they find that from? It's suddenly they're a good car, and it's because these cars are very difficult to set up in that narrow window that I was talking about. I think the Mercedes of all the top 4 teams has been the hardest to find that that sweet spot. But when they find it, my goodness, that's a good car. The Red Bull seems to have a wider window, but they obviously fell out of that window in the sprint. And Wajid's right; they looked absolutely awful. I mean, I've never seen Max Verstappen like struggle with oversteer and understeer in all the corners. Like it was insane. It was like he was on skating blocks or something. And that car looked horrific. It looked like it would be barely capable of grabbing 7th place in the race. And they obviously then figured out, okay, we've gone completely the wrong way with this. We need to go the other way with this. Tested that obviously then through qualifying as well, and hit a sweet spot. And I think that's all it is.
Fair enough. I'm just sort of thinking back to the sprint. Obviously, he got a bad start and he was nowhere, and then in the race, nailed it on some kind of way, and it is now that he has actually extended his championship lead. I mean, I know a lot of people have talked about it since Imola. It was about the same points that Lando and him had scored, and now he's actually extended that lead. I mean, I think it's 4-2-9, 6-3-4-9, so he's now 80 points clear. So 80 points? 80 points clear of Lando. So, it shows that, we may have been critical of Red Bull all the time, and that's quite, and Max at a lot of time, but it's because he's at such a high level, you expect that high level all the time. I think that's a long and short of it.
Yeah.
In terms,
it was the first dry win since Spain.
Yeah,
which is a long time ago. You know.
And I think what actually helped Max this year is every car's been kind of diva-ish. Even, we know Mercedes has, but even Ferrari, they had a couple of off races. McLaren, they had a couple of off races. But also, it wasn't a dominant summer of McLaren's. Mercedes won 3 races in the summer. Ferrari won a couple. So things were never like Lando, or Oscar.
No, but I think Wajid and I will agree on this, and we've said this in previous podcasts. They had the opportunity to win them.
Oh, agreed.
And
They should have won the
they should have
majority
won.
of the summer races.
And the only thing I was going to add is everyone's season didn't start till Miami. Red Bull were the only people that showed up in Bahrain.
Yeah.
Which is why Max won 7 of the opening 8 races. And even then, Australia, if the car doesn't give up, he probably wins in Australia as well. So him and the Red Bull took advantage where, the car may have become diva-ish or whatever. No one actually knows about this device either, which is,
True.
As always, is never spoken about. But they also took advantage of the situation when they had the quickest car. They were showing up week after week. Checo doing what Checo does, which is like kind of there or thereabouts. But Red Bull took advantage when they did, and no one and McLaren didn't. And I think that's the biggest point of this particular championship, because it's not like there wasn't enough time to overhaul that points gap. There's been more than enough time.
Yeah. For me, I agree. I think it's the first 5 races. When you go back to the first 5 up to Miami, effectively when Lando won. If you look at the races before that, Oscar hasn't got a single podium in those first 5 races. And then even in Miami, he's like 13th. Lando's got a couple of podiums, but he's finished 6th, 8th, 3rd, 5th, 2nd in the first 5 races, whilst Max has won 4 of the 5 and retired from the lead in the other one. So for me, it's the way that they start, and it's characteristic, unfortunately, of McLaren in the last few seasons. In fact, under Zach Brown's tenure, it's been pretty much the same thing. They start slow, they build up, they get better, whether they're absolute trash when they've got GP2 engines, and they still get better at some point during the season, but they're always really poor out of the blocks. They need to fix that next season if they're gonna challenge for the title, because otherwise we're gonna have the same thing. It might not be Red Bull next season, it might be Mercedes or it might be Ferrari, but someone is going to come out of the blocks quickly, and McLaren, if they want to be a title contender, need to match that next season.
And just to finally add on Paul's point, Lando and McLaren, rightly or wrongly, have been given a fair amount of leeway to this is the first time they made up here in 10 years, blah blah blah. There's no excuse next year, and there should be no excuse next year. If they come out with if this car progresses the way it does over the winter, and they come out with one of the quickest cars on the grid, or on average the quickest car on the grid, and he doesn't get it done, then he should be raked over the coals.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at Lando's, because Lando's the most consistent driver. Obviously, been at McLaren for the most of the 10 years at Brown. I'm just having a look. His best start to a season is a 3rd place in Austria when he goes first podium.
That was the COVID season.
Yeah, that was the COVID season. 2021, he got 4th, 3rd, 5th, 8th, 3rd in the first 5 races, and that looked like pretty much his best start to a season. Even better than the start of this season. So it's certainly something that they need to hit the ball rolling.
It's so strange, David, as well, because historically, McLaren were the team. Like, I could give you so many examples, but I'll give you a couple, otherwise we'll be here all day. But back in the 80s, when they came out, particularly for the MP44 in 1988, they missed the first test, and everyone was like, oh, that's weird. McLaren are so late to the party, and they're going to be so late to testing, their cars are going to be trash. And they carried on working on the cars, and eventually they turned up on day 2 at Imola, and Senna goes out and goes 1.7 seconds quicker than anyone else has gone in the whole test. And then obviously that season they win 15 out of the 16 races. That was a theme of McLaren for a very long time, particularly under John Barnard's designership. 84, 85, 86, 87, 88. Even in 89 and 90, they would come out really, really quickly with the best car, and everyone else would be playing catch-up. Only until 92, it took until Williams actually came out with a better car at the start of the season. So they had a long period of time where they historically, from an engineering point of view, from an aero point of view, they were the car to beat from the off. And yet somehow that ethos and that idea and the engineering side of it, that's lost somewhere. I know it's a long time. I know it's like 30, nearly 40 years, but it seems to have been lost inside Woking for some reason. And they didn't find it next year, for sure.
I will obviously say the weekend wasn't without a controversial point for Max Verstappen, and that came in qualifying, where we have the outlap incident with George Russell. Now, he received a one-place penalty for this, which isn't actually even in the rule book, which is amazing. Well, here we go again, FIA. But a lot of people very angry that it's an outlap, it shouldn't be anything. But for me, it should have been a free-place penalty. If you're going to give a penalty, it's free-place penalty. And I don't care whether you're on an outlap, in-lap, fast lap, whatever. If you're on the racing line, on what is a flat-out corner, and it's dark, you're in the middle of the desert. I know you got lights, but it's still quite dark out there, isn't it? It's not abundantly clear where cars are. You can see from the TV cameras. You shouldn't be cruising on a racing line. If you want to get, but he would know that George is 3-4 seconds back. If somebody's 10 seconds back, fair enough. But George was never 10 seconds back. So I actually think he got away with only having a one-place penalty, something that's not even in the rule book. Paul, your view on that?
Well, I think there's three parts to this. First one is, if you're going to give a penalty, and we're talking about consistency again, about stewards and race directors and the FIA, and that penalty that is assigned to either blocking or causing a driver to slow on a qualifying lap or getting in their way, any of those three kind of penalties, which I've looked back at the last 14 of those penalties, every single one of them, 2 weren't actually given, but the other 12 were all given, and they were all given a 3-place grid penalty, because guess what? That's what it says in the sporting code. So that's consistent. And then this one comes along, fits into one of those 3 categories. Either you blocked someone when he didn't, or he got in the way of someone when he didn't, or he made someone unavoidably slow on their qualifying lap, which he did. Now, whether he meant to do it or not doesn't actually come into it. This is point 2. He stood and argued, apparently, in the steward's office. I've got this on really good authority, that he stood and argued that he didn't do it on purpose. I don't think anyone thought he did do it on purpose. Now, obviously, the anti-Max team will all think he did it on purpose, and the anti-Red Bull fans will all think he did it on purpose. But the point is, he argued very strongly that he didn't do it on purpose. But that misses the point of whether he actually made an infraction or not, because not always are infractions done on purpose. So I think he did impede in some way. Whether he meant to or not, I don't think he did. And I think the anger with which he showed about the penalty being given to him meant that he felt hard done by. And yet, they actually only gave him a 1-place grid penalty, which has never been done before. So I was really, I listened to Christian Horner afterwards ranting and raving about the fact that they've been given an unfair penalty. And you think, well, no, because even if he didn't mean it, you've still been given a penalty, and you've actually been given a penalty which is 2 places short. So what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's insane. So that's the 3 points for me. If you're going to give the penalty, make sure it's consistent with all the other penalties that have been given. It wasn't. And then on top of that, the fun thing that I got, and I got this from someone at Liberty. I'm not going to tell you who, obviously, but I got this from someone at Liberty who said, now I can't remember whether he told me this was done in the steward's room or in the parade, but somewhere before the race, Max said to George, I hope that you and your fucking FIA mates are fucking happy with what you've done. Those are the actual, I don't know the exact words in the order, but those are the words that were used and the swearing that was used in it as well. Yeah,
that was something Ted brought up, I think, in his notebook as well.
Was it? Yeah. I mean, he was properly angry about it. I've never seen him as angry as that at any previous. I think this is a culmination of things on top of him that have kind of reached a point where he just feels like people are picking on him now, and it's not fair.
I get that, but then he said it on the driver's parade, and I see that Hot Dog said Russell wasn't on a quick lap. Yes, but this is what I was saying about my view of it. If that had caused an accident and he hadn't been on a quick lap, he still caused an accident. Yeah. There's still an accident there to be had. Wajid, we'll have your view on it as well. I also want you to maybe comment on, we had the hysterical Russell, apparently, according to Red Bull sources in the press office or the steward's room, Is that kind of ironic, considering we're also talking about a team that sent Alex Albon out to used up a filming day to continually drive around Copse Corner in 2021 to try and prove you couldn't hold the line on the inside?
I mean, this is also the same team that doesn't send out their junior team on soft tires to get fastest lap and get involved in a championship as well. So,
But also, can I just chip in as well? Sorry, Wajid, just
no, it's okay. It's okay.
The same team, by the way, that used those same tactics on Sunday during the race, where Max said, "Guys, can someone investigate Lando, please, for going through double yellows without lifting?" And they then reported Lando to the stewards, and obviously he did do it, so he got a penalty as well. Now, I'm not saying they caused that, but they've done exactly the same thing that they're complaining about being done to them. All the teams do that. All of them do that. That's how it gets reported.
And does anyone not remember the entire 2021 season and how pathetic that got?
Jonathan
No,
Wheatley was
you
the star of the
cannot
show.
have the shout out on 2020. I said 2021 first. I'm taking the shout this week.
That's fine, but I think like that, the FIA literally implemented a rule for the following year that the team comms of the comms directors could no longer go out because of how pathetic it got.
Yeah, and they can only have one representative.
And they can only have one. Yeah, thank you. I was just about to get that, but thank you very much, Paul, for adding. No, I wasn't meant to be sarcastic. I don't know why it's come out so sarcastic. I was being genuinely sincere.
There's only one way to solve this. Fight.
I was genuinely being sincere. So, like it's a Drive to Survive level of memory here, which is if it happened more than 3 months ago, it doesn't exist. Every team does it. He broke the rules. It's just, I just don't think it's a great look for George Russell as the head of the the GDPA and the representative, that it is only a one place grid penalty and he is the benefactor. That's the bit that looks stupid, which is if you're going to of however is played out, why is it only a one grid penalty? And trust me, we'll get into something else that happened in the race, which is going to take about 2 hours of this podcast.
Yes.
It's just
we've got a lot more, haven't we?
Yeah, it's just pathetic. It is just stupid. It's just pathetic. And in terms of Max, it's probably just accumulation of the entire year where he feels wronged. There's this stupid narrative that if you're not a British driver, then you get penalized harsher. Like there's some, like speaking as a man of color, cis white men talking about how they feel victimized is just it's just crazy.
We can also throw out there that 3 of the harshest penalties were given out in the Grand Prix to British drivers.
Well, the harshest penalty we've seen all year was literally given to the guy in second place.
Yeah.
And
that was reported by the guy that was winning, that complained about people reporting penalties about him.
It's just, I know we've all been asking for 10-second stop goes all year, but this thing just came out of nowhere.
No, but we will get onto that and whether it was the right thing to do.
Just
we've got Bubble Bart. Comments. Yeah, let's go on.
Mr. Hot Dog says, I agree 100%, but Russell just seems like a jerk in real life, so I can't understand people's frustration with him.
We've commented on Russell quite a few times this season, involving Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes and that. But yeah, there does seem to be another side to him anyway.
I mean, there is a reason that his nickname is Osama bin Russell.
And Bubble Bart says, I think there's a difference between telling the stewards to look at something. If there's an infringement made, I'm personally arguing and trying to convince the steward that an infringement was made.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah, that is a fair point. But my general gist is that all the drivers are doing this. Whether you weigh one up as being a bit more hardcore because he's standing in the steward's office or not, they've all done that this season as well. Like Christian Horner's been in there arguing about something that Mercedes are supposed to have done. George Russell has been in there arguing about something that Verstappen's done. Hamilton's been in there moaning about Charles Leclerc. Like all the drivers have been in the steward's office moaning about another driver at some point. And if you listen to the team radio, you'd honestly think that these were kindergarten kids, because they're literally on the radio going, guys, Alonso just ran wide. 3-second penalty required. Report him now. Like, they're literally all doing it on the radio. They sound like kids, honestly. So whilst I accept what Bart's saying, they're all guilty of doing this throughout the season. It's not just this weekend. They're all guilty of doing it. So for one driver to get upset with another driver about doing it seems a bit petulant to me. That's all.
Yeah, I completely agree. But he did go on and win the Grand Prix, and we know how petulant Red Bull and Max Verstappen could be. We are going to move on, but we will be coming back to Red Bull. What a surprise. As I was saying to somebody, because somebody said, oh, you know what, like in terms of Perez and that, why don't we just get rid of him? Which we'll get onto that topic a little bit later on. But in terms of Red Bull, we're talking about Red Bull and their sponsorship brand, basically. They're trying to sell cans of drink. So that we're talking about them is the main thing they want. They want their name out there. So that seems to be a strange one anyway. But we'll move on to Ferrari closing in. Now, this is to do with the Constructors' Championship. McLaren took a very good 1-2 in the sprint, not in the order we all expected coming out in final corner, but Lando Norris returning the Brazil favour to Piastri. I don't think that will get returned back as Lando thinks so, in terms of if he needs help next year off Piastri, but we'll see. Personally, I think that's kind of not going to happen. But also in the race, because of Lando's indiscretion and then subsequent electric pace, so shall we call it, he scores 2 points, Piastri scores 15, Ferrari gets second with Leclerc in 18 and Sainz with 8, so that closes the gap, and the gap is now, as you can see at the bottom of your screen,
21 points.
21 points between Ferrari and McLaren for this Constructors' Championship. And also Red Bull are out of it now, aren't they? Yes.
Yeah. They are. Mathematically can't win it.
Yeah. So, but I think Red Bull can catch Ferrari. So there is that side of it. If both Ferraris probably retire and Verstappen wins and Perez...
They need a 1-2 and Ferrari's both the non-finish.
Yeah, well, okay, that's not going to happen because it's Red Bull and they got Perez in the goal. Anyway, it really looked good for McLaren at one point. And then Ferrari sort of didn't seem to be anywhere. And then Charles Leclerc seemed to get second place out of thin air kind of thing this weekend. What do we think, Wajid? Do we think that this is still a real fight for the title? Or because Ferrari aren't terrible around Abu Dhabi, but neither team have been really good around there in the past, say, 5-6 years.
10 years. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
10 years.
Well, the last time we saw McLaren on the podium, I think, is going back to, I don't know if we saw him last year, but we're going back to like Lewis winning, aren't we?
Yeah, which is 2019, wasn't it? They had like 6 in a row with Rosberg, Bottas, and Hamilton. But Red Bull have won the last.
Not
McLaren.
Not Mercedes, McLaren.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, McLaren. No, McLaren. Last time McLaren won in Abu Dhabi was Lewis in 2011.
Yeah, so we're talking a good 10 years since McLaren's won there, but they don't need to win. Wajid, who do you think's coming out?
But on the other hand, Ferrari have never won there.
True. That's normally because they're stuck behind Petrov.
I still think McLaren are going to capitulate. I said last week.
Really?
I said last week Ferrari are going to win the constructors.
I mean, I thought they might, but I don't know. Not now.
No, I still think there's a capitulation. McLaren have not shown me anything to suggest well, let me take that. Let me rephrase. McLaren have not shown me enough to suggest there's not a capitulation in them, in terms of in terms of strategy and things like that. So, and I trust Leclerc and Sainz more than I trust Lando and Piastri, unfortunately. So, I still think Ferrari leave out. I think for the future of Ferrari for next season, I think it's better if they finish second in terms of wind tunnel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a capitulation I still think there's a capitulation in McLaren, because for all intents and purposes, then we should be talking about how Abu Dhabi is the crowning moment, and it's just a parade for McLaren celebrating the constructors. They only need like 2 points, but again, due to mistakes, due to Piastri not showing up, due to Lando's slight recklessness, due to them not doing it in qualifying again, we're going to Abu Dhabi and we're going to Abu Dhabi, and in a season, and it just feels very weird to speak about Ferrari in a positive light in terms of picking up the scraps, when Ferrari systematically for the last 4 or 5 years, you just go, oh, Ferrari. And
yeah, I mean, we said in the summer, we put our championship challengers forward. We put Lewis Hamilton forward, even though he was 7th in points. We looked at Charles Leclerc and Carlos, and we said, nah, Ferrari are out of it. Leclerc won't get involved. Sainz won't get involved. We've now got Charles Leclerc 8 points. Nobody seems to be mentioning this. Charles Leclerc is 8 points off Lando Norris for second in the championship. And that could be turned around. That's literally, Charles Leclerc wins and it's probably going to swap around. But Paul, it was just mentioned by Wajid, Oscar Piastri. Yes, he got a podium this weekend. Yes, he got a sprint win that was given to him in his second. But he still seems off the pace.
I wouldn't say he's off the pace this weekend. I thought he was better this weekend, but I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I feel like in the previous 3 races particularly, he felt like, maybe even 4, maybe go back to like Austin, it felt like he was a bit disinterested in it all. It was all about Lando this and Lando that, and would he help Lando with the title and all. And I feel like all of that was a bit, kind of got him down a bit. When you look at his results since probably, say like Austria, you think he's finished in the top 4 in 8 or 9 races in a row, and then suddenly he can't finish higher than 8th in Mexico. He's 8th in Singapore as well. I know he had the 2nd place in the sprint, but he's 8th in there. It's 7th in Las Vegas as well. And you just kind of go, what? How has he suddenly become the Sergio Perez of the top 8? That's really weird.
But just to push back slightly, I don't think it was a good drive by Oscar this weekend at all. Because every time he got close to Russell, he lost the car. He was losing half a second. He lost a second. The only reason, it's.
I mean, I think some of the cars were struggling. I think the wind was extraordinarily difficult to cope with in Qatar.
I get that, but you're in what has been the best car.
Sure, but all of the cars at the front were struggling with that. There wasn't any other,
I don't know. I'm going to push back slightly and say, I'll say it's a better weekend. I won't say it's a good weekend.
Yeah, and that's basically what I've said. I don't think it was as bad as it's been in the previous 3 races. For me, I think I said 2 or 3 weeks ago, it feels like he's just disinterested at the moment and would rather just it be 2025 already. Because then he can start fresh, he can start as a joint number 1 again, and he can establish himself, hopefully from his point of view, as the leader in the team next year, having sort of spent another year learning effectively. But, we're talking about a man who is literally just about to finish his 2nd full F1 season. And I think he's made remarkable strides. To have already won Grand Prix in his 2nd season in F1 is not, it's not a usual thing. We don't see it that often. Got to go back to Max doing it last time out. We haven't really had anyone that's come along and done that on a regular basis in the past. It's always, you get back in history and find a few more, but generally speaking, they take a few seasons to get up there. And Oscar has arguably had a better car, obviously, to do that with, but he's coming in and hit the ground running straight away. No one's questioning whether he should be in a top car, are they? Whereas they perhaps were when we were talking about whether he jumped Alpine to McLaren at the right time. So I don't know. I think he's already got his mind on next year.
Yeah, that could be very true.
But I think in terms of the constructors, when we talk about Ferrari and McLaren, I think one of the things that nobody's really talking about is we could be looking at the first. Well, we are looking at the first non-Mercedes or Red Bull championship for 15 years. 15 years. The last team to beat either of those two teams was effectively the same team, Brawn, back in 2009. But before that, Ferrari, 2008 was the last time they won the constructors. So it would be 16 years if Ferrari won it. McLaren, however, you have to go back to 1998 for the last constructors title for McLaren.
Yeah, because they got
that's 26 years ago.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Quick question to both you gentlemen: If Lando Norris finishes behind Leclerc in the World Championship, is it a poor season?
No, I think because you still have to use it in the context of where they set out at the start of the season and where they were from last year, and that is that they were probably the third best team, maybe even the fourth best team, and so. Actually, yes, they've had a competitive car. Yes, they've maybe not taken full advantage of that, but they've still had a very good season. I think even if they finished third and fourth in the championship and second in the constructors, I think you could still say they've had a good season. Have they maximised what they could do? No, absolutely not. And I think we'd all agree on that one. Because if they had, we'd probably still have a driver's title that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And they would have wrapped up the Constructors' Championship 3 races ago. So they've definitely not made the most of what they've been given. But I still think in the context of the last 25 years, is it a successful season for McLaren? Yes, it is.
Mr.
Yeah.
Magpie?
Well, in terms of not just McLaren, but in terms of Lando, I think second or third in the championship, you've won races. You've won one where you've had to, Miami was a bit lucky, shall we say, but then you've actually gone wheel to wheel with Max. Maybe you've lost out things like Austria. Maybe you need to be a bit harder. But at the end of the day, if McLaren come away with Constructors' Championship and second and fourth in drivers or third and fourth in drivers, I still think they'll be very, very happy at that. I think even Lando will be. There may be a slight belief, but he now proves he can dominate a race. We look at Zandvoort as an example. And Singapore, it wasn't Singapore, was it?
Singapore.
No.
Yeah, Singapore, where
he drove away by 30 seconds of the road. You mean that?
Yeah, that's right.
Singapore.
So we can see he can do that now, which means when he starts a blank next season, if McLaren hit the ground running, and we're looking at probably a very competitive season, we've got to remember that we may have something that we've had since summer break, which is loads of different teams pitching in. So, and especially if they keep this sort of diva-ish attitude of cars, it's going to be all over the place for next season. And, who knows if somebody else develops up. I can't really see an Aston Martin developing up that quickly because they'll be concentrating on next year's car. Maybe an Alpine or a Haas could get up there and get some good results. But, I still think...
I think from my point of view, I think I think I said this last time, that the last year of the rule changes usually mean that they're the closest of all of the years that we have in a rule change. And obviously this one's a bit shorter. We only have 4 years in it. But there's very little else to find out now about these ground effect cars. They've spent the last 3 years finding out how to make them quick, and now they've found out how to make them quick, and they've all done that now to a degree. Don't forget one of the races we had qualifying where it was 7/10 between first and 20th this year. So they're already very close, and I can only see them getting closer next year unless someone tries something wild and goes a completely different way and it either fails massively or succeeds massively. And then other than that, I can't believe they can find anything else now, and especially because, as you rightly said, resources are already starting to be put towards what they can do for 2026 rather than, spending all of that money and time on 2025. But I still think we'll get a really competitive season. My hope is that they all come out of the blocks quickly. And that way we do get, 7, 8, 9 drivers competitively with a chance of winning. That's all I really want. As an F1 fan, I just want it to be super competitive every weekend and be a bit more unpredictable. And we've had that for the 3/4 of the season. We've had that, and I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this season more than I've enjoyed many seasons, other than 21, which obviously was just a crazy battle between two great drivers. Outside of that, I haven't really enjoyed a World Championship this open for a long time, at least in the sense that we go to a race and not really know who's going to be quickest. I think that's been a lot of fun. And more of that for next year, please.
Hopefully more of that for next year.
Yeah.
We will, obviously, that's going to get talked about a lot over the next weekend because that's Ferrari and McLaren. But next up, we will talk about Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu. Depends which way you want to start with it. Yes, Sauber score a point. Well, hey, they almost had two drivers in the points as well if Lando hadn't been setting blistering lap times. Driver of the day, he's been missing for pretty much all this season. I think his best other result is 11th in the opening round in Bahrain.
Bahrain, yeah.
He's been consistently 20th, 19th, running at the back, nowhere, not even near Bottas at times, but we haven't seen him throwing it at the scenery either. Let's just add it that way. Sauber have not been going, oh, we need to repair this one. Hey, Williams. But something over the last few races, just in practice, Bottas may be getting up there, and it looks like the Sauber isn't, I won't say coming good. It's not coming good, but it's now getting itself to the back end of the back end of the RBs and being able to maybe in the right situation put itself in there. And they took advantage when they put themselves in there of a crazy race and a situation that happened. They're still looking like they might score a point even without all the safety car and that. So, but it was Joe who managed to get it, not Bottas, unfortunately. No disrespect to Joe, but obviously Bottas has been around. He's never not scored a point in a World Championship he's took part in. Looks like he might do this time. But what do we think? What do we think about Sauber finally getting that point? Every team now scored a point in this season.
Well done. Thanks for participating. See you next year. Next. I'm not giving
participation certificate.
I'm not giving this useless team who've barely shown up like any airtime. Cool. We celebrated. They got 2 minutes on the podcast. Well done. Congratulations, guys. Piss off. See you next year. Paul.
To be fair, it's still slightly shorter than what he got for his Chinese Grand Prix 13th place.
That was just pathetic. That
13th place podium will live me forever.
Yes.
It's such a good podium.
Paul, if you want to spend more time, I'm done.
No, not really. I mean, look, it has been a wretched season for them. They've not developed the car all season. They've got lucky towards the end of the season on a track which they happened to be quite quick on last year as well, if you remember. That suits their car. They had a good setup for it, and then they had a crazy race which helped them out. So all of those things conspired. I'm glad they've scored some points, but they have been absolutely abysmal all season, and they should be ashamed of themselves for scoring so little points and finishing so far behind even the midfield teams. And the fact is that neither of them are back in Formula One next year. So I think that says a lot about the drivers this season too. But congrats to Joe for scoring more points than Sergio Perez over the last 6 races.
He's also now, I think, equal with Liam Lawson in terms of the points scored.
Also, by the way, you haven't mentioned, and I think it's a shameful fact that you've not mentioned this, David. Valtteri Bottas is now 22nd in a 20-driver championship. He's moved up from 23rd above Logan Sargent into 22nd on the account of the fact that he's now got an 11th and a 13th, which beats Logan. He must be thrilled.
No, I'm just glad that he's actually not at the bottom now.
Last. Yeah,
because I think that would have been very harsh if that's at the end of his F1 career.
I mean, I think I mentioned it before. Alonso has been showing retirement form. Lewis Hamilton has been showing retirement form. I don't even know what you'd explain Bottas's form as for the entire season, because he's not only retirement form; it's like buried underground form. Like he's really been terrible this season.
I would say Bottas has been better than Joe, though.
Okay.
Sometimes.
You sprinkle you put some sprinkles on shit. It's still shit in it. Just shit with
I
sprinkles.
will say,
I mean, I was
though,
going to go something similar as well, like polish a turd, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
turd, you know,
think when you look at the whole kind of
it's been awful.
Sauber
How
situation,
else can you summarise Sauber's season? Is that other
yeah,
than awful?
it's been awful. Both drivers, I mean, we believe both drivers won't leave Formula One, but they won't be on the grid.
No, I mean, in theory, this is the strangest thing, right? One of them could end up as the Mercedes reserve and then fit in if Antonelli's not very good, and one could end up at Ferrari and end up driving a Ferrari if Hamilton isn't any good.
Well,
what the hell?
Joe can be at Ferrari. It doesn't mean you end up getting the seat. Look at Schwartzman.
Well, he's the reserve driver.
Yes, but look at Schwartzman.
Apparently, he's going to be the reserve driver.
Schwartzman's a reserve driver for Ferrari, and Behrman got the call.
Yeah. Only because he was there.
Wasn't Schwartzman was away. That is by chance.
Oh, he was at WEC. Yes.
Yeah, that was the only reason Behrman got.
Otherwise, Schwartzman would have had that role, and then who knows how different the driver market would have looked.
They won't have Schwartzman now.
No, he's
because
gone.
Obviously he's going to IndyCar with Prema and Callum Ilott. I think that's going to be a great little team.
I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
In terms of Joe going there, though, maybe it's a situation where if Lewis or Charles are ill, Behrman steps up to Ferrari, and Joe could easily be loaned back to Haas or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
But we've given Peter Sauber his time, and he seems year after year to keep that team running.
He does.
And
he does.
I mean, even if it's not successfully.
Can I just give one thought on this? And I'm sure Wajid has already thought about this as well, because I think he mentioned something about not this team, but we've thought about this in another way. Does it not seem suspicious to you guys that they've not developed this car all year, have a fuck ton of money behind them, owned by Audi, now have sold 30% off, which apparently is a minor stake, got all this money swimming about, and somehow mysteriously managed to conspire to finish last, and therefore next season get all of the CFD time and all of the tunnel time on the verge of going into a brand new rule set? That's lucky.
Yeah, I think
conspiracy theory much.
I also find it interesting that we now have state-owned teams in F1
through the back door.
Yeah,
by the
way. and we also the state that's taking ownership has like the second or third biggest contract in terms of how much they pay to host the race. It's just mad. It's just mad.
Yeah, I would say it's not the first time we've had a state-owned, because McLaren has been state-owned by Bahrainian.
I'm
sure.
Did the
Bahrainian state not own some?
They do own some, but it's not the same thing.
They didn't own. They owned the construction side of the McLaren group, not the. They had nothing to do with the actual team.
They are something to do with the Formula One team because of the sponsorship money.
The one thing we can say is at least nobody owns the deconstruction side of Williams. Anyway, we will.
I mean, we've been an hour. Let's just get into it.
Well, I was going to skip that one for a minute because we know that we'll do some shorter ones first. Mercedes, Hamilton, bitter end. What a race for Lewis! The Mercedes was quick, and yet again in qualifying, just miraculously disappears with pace, and then in the race he has to struggle through, and then he had that. I mean, the speeding penalty was fair dues. I mean, most times it's 5 seconds, but he was 24 kilometers over the speed limit, so it wasn't like he was just, I just missed it. He actually went quite far through the line to speed.
And start as well.
In terms of the jump start as well. In terms of the this isn't ending nicely, is it?
No, not at all. And I will give you massive credit because at the start of the season, you did say they should cut him, Let him go to Ferrari. Let him see it out. Because in fairness, I don't think there's a single Mercedes, but I also don't think there's a single Mercedes fan out there that also thought Mercedes would treat Hamilton in the way he's been sort of treated towards the end of the season as well, in terms of no fanfare, no love, no support. Given that he has been your most successful driver in your F1 history, right?
Hang on. They did put a little banner on their Facebook page saying "Thank you, Lewis."
Sorry. Yeah. It does. There are some, but regardless of all that, there are some massive questions about Hamilton's form going into next year. Whether he's still quick enough to be on the grid, and whether we're not at that whole Schumacher period and then Schumacher retired, by the way, but at that Schumacher stage where, yeah, it's nice to have a world champion on the grid, but your time has gone, and maybe a certain race in the year of our Lord and Savior, 2021, has done a lot more mental damage to him and his confidence than he likes to admit.
Yeah. Paul, your view on the Mercedes? I mean, we've got to remember Hamilton's driven nothing but Mercedes engines in Formula One through the whole period. So it's not like we're just looking at a McLaren split where he was with McLaren all through the youth. He's been with this team realistically since 2007.
Yeah. It's I was very surprised actually. I think we had the histrionics in Brazil already, and I thought Brazil was a bit un-Hamilton-like. Got the sense that he was a bit frustrated with how it was all ending with Mercedes, not how he wanted to go out, not how he wanted to end the season. I think also the fact that he's been absolutely destroyed in qualifying by George this season, which I also don't think Russell's getting enough credit for. He said over the weekend that he's, quote, definitely not fast anymore. I've never heard Lewis Hamilton say that. It's never been about his outright speed. It's never been about what he can do in a car. It's always been about the car's difficult to set up, or they haven't got the right tyres this weekend, or they can't find the right window, or this style of driving doesn't suit. There's always those things were coming out before. Toto said them, George has said them, Lewis has said them, other people in the team have said them. This was different, though. This was I'm definitely not fast anymore. What the hell are you doing going to Ferrari next season then? I don't think they're particularly enamoured by that phrase. I'm hoping that this is just another one of those wobbles. And mentally speaking, I think he's in a really bad place. And I think that doesn't get talked enough about either. Stresses and pressures that these drivers are under. And they'll all take it slightly differently. But the fact is that he's been absolutely destroyed by George in qualifying, and mostly actually in the races as well. He's been quite a way off. Like, to give you some stats this season, he's an average of 0.4 of a second down. That's a lot. Like, if he's 0.4 away from Charles next season, I don't know that he lasts much more than a year.
Well, the 0.4 is the famous Red Bull one, isn't it? I think he'll see out his 2 years because of the marketing behind.
Yeah, maybe there's that. And obviously, a lot of people said, "Oh, he won't finish the season with Mercedes," but that's always been the plan. Like, it's not just Mercedes; it's Petronas as well. He's got a very, very strong relationship with them. They've had this thing planned for months behind the scenes that he would go and attend this final meeting at the end of the season, which they've done every year for the last 4 or 5 years. By the way, it's not a new thing. So I don't think there's any danger in not turning up in Abu Dhabi and actually having, one final race. And who knows? They might have one final good race together. They might find that window that they've been looking for, that he's found 2 or 3 times during the season, by the way. It's not like he's had a terrible season overall. He's had probably a better, more successful season than he had last year, even though the car maybe isn't quite to his liking. When it's sweet, though, we've seen some really good drives from him. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about how he chased Russell down from 10th on the grid and finished second, and probably should have won that race if he'd not screwed up qualifying. that was a really, really vintage Hamilton drive. That was 2 weeks ago. Like, we're not. I don't think we should get too carried away with where he's at, but I am very surprised that he came out with the whole, I'm just slow now, kind of quote, because it was just so un-Hamilton like. So I'm hoping this is a one-off. I hope he has a good end to the season, and then I hope he goes away, clears his head, spends time with his dad and his family, comes back next year really strong, and I think it will invigorate him going to Ferrari anyway. So hopefully we see a different version of Lewis next season.
I also want to sort of add, I don't think he's adapted his driving style to these new cars either. I don't think that's talked about enough. I think the Lewis Hamilton driving style does not fit in with these ground effect cars well enough. I think everything has to be perfect for Lewis to shine in these cars. That's not taken away from the driver here, because I'm sure there's going to be people, oh, well, he did it in this generation. Yes, but everyone has openly stated the ground effect cars have to be driven completely differently for other people's driving style compared to what the previous generations of cars have been. Now, when you've driven a car which has had no problem with downforce since 2014, and you come into a car which is not at that level, it is very difficult to adapt your driving style when you're used to driving a car one way that is at one with you. But I agree. I don't know. I'm gonna disagree with Paul. I think we're seeing the sort of whispers of a legendary career coming to a very, very small crescendo of an ending rather than the 8th world title and we walk off into the distance. I think the quest for it's done. I don't think he's got that pace anymore.
It'd be interesting.
He can
Go on.
He can probably take a couple of wins here and there. Can maybe help Ferrari win the constructors next year. I don't think he's got the pace for 8 world titles anymore on a consistent basis.
Well, we'll soon find out next year. I don't think, going back through his sort of mental side, I think a lot of what he's said this year, weirdly enough, because of how he's been treated and the comments that come out from the team, a lot of the things from Lewis's side is protecting or hiding away what else there is. So, like, for example, he will very much say, oh, I'm slow. It's trying to protect all the cars, not quite there, but he'll protect the team in terms of saying they're working hard for it and all that. I do think Lewis tries to protect the team the best he can, which I think he wants to try and make it a good relationship at the end. But is it the same from... I mean, I'm not saying it's from all Mercedes. I think most of Mercedes, love what Lewis has done and will always do so. Does the top of the team think that? Maybe not until it's a bit too late to know about it, personally. But we'll see next season. Another change, and we're still talking about Mercedes juniors, almost. Ocon or doing in. Terrible joke, I know. Esteban Ocon has had his last Grand Prix for Alpine. It wasn't a great one either. Did it last one corner? Pretty much.
Well, technically a corner, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think he got through the first corner. But Ocon is gone. Jack Doohan will step in at the final round. Gives him a bit of a warm-up for next season. Is it still a bit... I mean, it's been told it's a mutual partnership, but obviously from the Alpine side, they've gone, if you want to test with Haas in Abu Dhabi, you're not driving in Abu Dhabi for us. Do you think that's a bit harsh for the only driver who has won a Grand Prix for him in however long?
2008? Yeah, the Singapore.
Yeah, if you want to talk about it as Team Enstone, yeah, he's the only driver to win a race for Alpine as an Alpine The constructor Alpine, yeah.
I'd actually say there's Raikkonen's wins as well.
Well, I wasn't counting Lotus.
Well, that was the Lotus wins.
It's
Yeah,
still Enstone.
Okay, but my specifically was the Renault brand, sorry, rather than Team Enstone. No, the relationship deteriorated massively in Monaco when the team principal came out and said we had a conversation. He's gone off board. He didn't care about the team, etc., etc., etc. That right there was the beginning of the end. He was in the last year of his contract anyway, and it was just the deterioration at this point now. Do I think it's slightly hot? Do I think it's slightly harsh? Yeah, maybe, but it's not like no one. I think the three blind mice saw this coming. To be perfectly honest, in terms of how it's all capitulated, because it's Renault. I'm not calling it out, but it's Renault.
Paul?
Yeah, I think it was fairly predictable that it was going to happen at some point. I'm just probably more surprised that it's lasted as long as it has in some ways. I thought after the Monaco fallout in Canada was pretty severe. They've had a couple of near misses since as well. He's obviously said some stuff in the press after the contract was not renewed, and they obviously renewed Gasly, and then they signed Doohan. So all of those things, I think he pissed them off by signing with Haas and announcing it before they announced their things. There's lots of stuff going on in the background where they've just annoyed each other this season, I think. And then you add in the friction with Gasly that was already apparent when he signed. Inevitably, I think this was one that was going to come to an end at some point. Like I said, I'm just surprised it's lasted this long. And with the fact that they're still fighting for sixth place and there's only 6 points in it, I'm still mildly surprised that they've kind of let Ocon go. But of course, they are fighting with the team that he's going to. So I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of like self-sabotage thoughts going on at Alpine, and they thought, you know what? We don't want a kid in our team who we already don't like very much, who doesn't like us, that's going to our rival team that we're only 6 points ahead of right now for next season, and a bucket load of money more. We'd rather not have him in our team to scupper any chances we've got of beating them. And that may be in the back of their mind as well. And obviously the official line is, yeah, we wanted to give Jack an extra chance at the end of this season to have a race with us. And Esteban wanted to do the test. So we said, well, if you want to do the test, then you give up the right to have the seat. And in the end, they've come to a mutual agreement, which I think is probably the best way they could have ended the relationship, frankly. I don't think it would have ended any better, that's for sure.
You mean he was fired?
Yeah. For all intents and purposes, yes. I mean, that's the official line is no, he hasn't been fired. But yes, effectively, in all but the official announcement of it, he's been fired.
I mean, if there's a team, that was going to do this season, I actually thought it might have been Haas with bringing Ollie Behrman in. To be fair, as we just saw, there's a quick comment from Hot Dog. What do you think about Alpine almost signing Colapinto, replacing Doohan before he started? We will get onto that because that kind of ties in with something else. So we'll get onto that in a minute. But now we'll go for it, Wajid. Not another one. Yes, it is time for a very quick FIA branded break, and then we'll be straight back into it.
Are you looking for work? Have you suddenly found yourself out of a job? Do you have experience as a race director who can take orders from a racist boss? Then you could fit right in at the FIA. Apply now for the open race director role and be blamed for frivolous rule enforcement like jewellery or swearing. Apply now.
Federation Internationale dell'Automobile.
Yeah, we're not getting in paddock. Anyway, Formula One has had a new race director, Rui Marquez, and well, what a baptism for fire it was for him. Firstly, before the weekend, the FIA president sacked or got rid of the new and not done any races F2 race director. Can't quite remember her name. I'm sure that's what Paul's looking for at the moment.
Are you talking about Tim Mayer or
no? The lady who was F2 race director. She got the job. I'm sure we will find it. See,
no, I wasn't looking for that.
we're so prepared on this podcast.
Jeanette Tan, I think. Didn't she?
Yeah,
leave?
that sounds.
She was.
about
She was
right.
the deputy to
F2, here we go.
F2. Yeah.
Here we go. Got it here. Jeanette
Yeah.
Tan was
Yeah.
the successor for Marquez and
Yeah.
had expected to be in charge in Qatar, but was dismissed just days before the event. Obviously, was the deputy to Marquez, so had the experience and was going to step up in. So had the experience, was going to do the 2 rounds and step into a full time. But she's understood to be the latest casualty from the FAA president Mohammed bin Salman, and there's
But this
been no
comes on the-
reasons. Sorry.
No, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, there's been no reasons why they've left. The exit also meant that Rui Marquez had to do Formula Academy, F2, and F1 in a sprint weekend as well.
Sorry,
Which
just,
is,
sorry, and
yeah.
also just to add, Tim Mayer, long time steward, was also ceremoniously given his marching orders from
By text.
from the Paris offices.
You know
Yeah.
do you know who Tim Mayer is, by the way?
Yeah, he was the son of the owner, original
Eddie,
McLaren.
Teddy Mayer, yeah, McLaren's second owner after Bruce McLaren himself.
But
yeah,
If you go back to,
but he's got a lot of links
situation-
in Formula One and motorsport.
Yeah.
Is my point. Yeah,
this is also the 4th weekend stint for Rui Marquez after being in Macau prior to Las Vegas. So he's done Macau, he's done Vegas, then he's come here, then he's going to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Not here.
And in Qatar,
We're not in Qatar.
he did Formula One, he did Formula
F1
2, and he did F1 Academy.
Yeah, just an insane amount of work. And people say, once the race starts or once the session starts, your mind should be only on the one thing. But you've made the guy sit in front of a TV monitors for 12 hours a day, 3 days in a row, with hardly any breaks, because obviously the sessions get going pretty quickly. We'll get on to the first thing. VSC, no VSC. Oh, maybe we'll just let somebody blow the mirror up. I don't mean the newspaper either. Before we get phone calls, the wing mirror fell off Alex Albon's car and ended up in the middle of a track on the main straight on the Qatar circuit, just by the pit lane exit line. A lot of calls were said to be wrong on that. First of all, guys, do you think? I mean, we could look in hindsight and go, yeah, of course it should have been this or that. What do you think about the actual situation? Do you think we should have had a VSC straight away? Do you think it was out the way to a point and it was a bit sort of iffy?
Paul,
What's your thoughts?
Paul, you go first.
From my point of view, looking at this and trying to sort of establish what would have happened in the past, particularly when Charlie was in charge, Charlie Whiting, and even Michael Massey, for that point of view, both of them would have absolutely undoubtedly called a safety car straight away. And the reason for that is that it was in an odd position, the debris. It was in the middle of the track. So whilst it wasn't on the racing line causing any issues, it was causing some race issues and it was causing some safety issues. A VSC wouldn't have been any good because no one could go out there and collect it and come back again. There just wasn't the gaps in place. And it's still very risky for someone to physically go out that far onto the track, even under a VSC. So a safety car, full safety car, should have been thrown as soon as they saw it on the concrete track. And then that stops any punctures. It stops anyone running over it. And it immediately allows guys to go and drive through the pit lane. That's the other thing they should have done. Even after they actually did call the safety car, they still let drivers drive down the main straight instead of asking them to go through the pit lane. There's no reason for them to do that. They all would go behind the safety car through the pit lane anyway. So why aren't you asking them to go through after the safety car's been caught? It just didn't make any sense from a safety point of view. And I think it avoids all the problems that you had after that. It avoids the speeding in the pit lane issues. It removes all of the crazy stuff about who benefited from the pit stops and who didn't. It's called and that's it. It's done. And also, it stops the punctures, which obviously could have been very, very dangerous. Like the two punctures we had, I think, were very lucky because they were both front left, which is why some people thought, oh, hang on, maybe they're related to like the rubber using on the road and the curbs. And they weren't. They were still shards in them, but there were shards in the other tyres on those cars as well. Pirelli confirmed that they found parts of carbon fibre in the other tyres. If two of those cars had gone on the main straight at 200 mile an hour, can you imagine the carnage that would have caused? Like, it puts the drivers at risk, it puts the stewards at risk, it puts the crowd at risk, it puts the safety of everyone at risk. And you spend 4 laps. And what are you doing, by the way, in that? Because you can't spend we had 30 laps to go. You can't possibly expect the entire race to go that way. Double wave yellows, pretend double wave yellows, by the way, because they weren't actually waved on the main straight. And that's partly why Lando complained that he didn't see anything. He was told in his ear, it's a double waved yellow area. Yeah. Go through it with reduced speed. But there weren't any actually waved there. And then, of course, no one saw it. And I've listened to every driver afterwards. We were asked 2 questions by the majority of the press. One was, did you see the debris? The majority of them said no. Max said he did see something, but he couldn't tell you what it was. The other drivers all said, and categorically 20 drivers confirmed that they had no idea it was a full-size wing mirror. None of them. Not one knew that it was a wing mirror. And if they had, Bottas wouldn't have run out there and blown it up and sent all those carbon fibre pieces all over the place. It was very, very dangerous. And I think for a man who's pretty experienced, Rui Marquez, that is, not in Formula 1 maybe, but he's done plenty of other dangerous races in F2 and made some really good calls, by the way. I was very surprised that this wasn't an immediate safety car and disappointed, frankly.
Just to throw out on the drivers going, oh, well, we didn't know it was this. We had 4 laps with it in the circuit.
Yeah.
Surely, as team owners, you would contact your driver and say, this is in the middle of the track. Do not head out there.
Yeah, that's what they're saying is when it was initially in the middle of the road and there was debris there, none of them had any idea what it was. None of them.
Sorry. And also, right, I'm going to cut the check. This is a race organization. This is an organization that fucking throw out red flags, right? When it's raining, yeah. When there's a bit of rain and the drivers start fucking crying, they throw out a red flag like there's no tomorrow. They'll drive in the race behind the safety car for 3 hours, right? Or just completely stop the race. This is a piece of carbon fiber on the longest straight of the track at 200 miles an hour, where is the prime overtaking spot at this circuit. It's probably the only overtaking spot at this circuit, like where you pull out stuff like that. I don't give a what the fuck was Rui Marco what the fuck was he doing? Yeah, right? Was he fucking watching porn? Like, what the fuck are you? And people are gonna say I'm going over the top. These guys pride themselves. Everything is always about safety. Oh, safety. Oh, we can't drive in the rain. Oh, we can't go out. We can't go outside today. Oh, we'll push. They do not give a shit when it comes to the fans in terms of the aesthetic of the race, right? And the other reason why I'm saying, obviously, it's not to the same extent. Felipe Massa nearly lost his life when that spring bopped up and down in Hungary, and it smashed him in the head. Now, I'm not saying to that extent, but someone driving over that carbon fiber, you do not know where that carbon fiber piece is ending up if someone smashes into it at the speed it is. You do not know the impact. You can't. No one can say where the piece of shard are going to end up at what speed and stuff like that. It is fucking mind-boggling, and I apologize for my language, but it is fucking mind-boggling on the quickest part of the track that nothing was done. Nothing was. Do you know when these Sky Sports commentators are openly saying, why is there not a safety car when there's a safety car for every at the minimum, why is there not any sort of double wave yellow or anything like that? It is pathetic. Utterly pathetic. And it's ruined, and we're lucky it's only ruined 2 drivers' race. Like, it's ruined their race But you know what I mean? Shit happens. That's what happens with luck. It has only ruined the race. As Paul has stated, it could have been so much worse if those tires give out straight away. It is lucky that they were slow punctures. You know, I think Lewis, the tire carcass went for Lewis around turn 5. I think for Carlos it was about turn 7, turn 8. We're lucky they're slow. They were lucky they're slow punctures, right? Mohammed bin Salman is a fucking dickhead. Yeah, he is the worst. He's one of the worst presidents in recent history of the organization. The way he has torn up stewards, people with massive experiences, because they give him side eye, because he has small dick energy, because he's a fucking ignorant, xenophobic, racist, and sexist. I don't give a shit. I don't click me up. I don't care. All right, he's completely destroyed the FI, and I don't even have that much vim for Marquez, because the man basically worked 3 straight days with no break. Where were the other people trying to help him and say, listen, there's a piece of carbon fiber, call the safety car. It should not have taken 2 drivers' races pretty much ending for this to. It is a slam dunk, and it is just pathetic. It is utterly pathetic. And so, like I said, I apologize for my language. I apologize for the comments I've made, but it is beyond a fucking joke. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about going. I don't care about going to the. It doesn't bother me. I create the I'd much rather speak my opinion and speak my truth, and people be here and listen to my truth and disagree with my truth, rather than kiss ass and kiss people's asses so I can get an interview and stuff like that. This podcast isn't here for that. I think all 3 of us pride ourselves on being as truthful as possible to you guys, and grow on like authenticity rather than we all want a bunch of paddock passes.
I will say, and you know, a lot of people would. I was watching a Grand Prix with 2 Aussies at the time, and I said I can understand why they'd left. This was a couple of laps after. I could understand at first why they left it, partly because it was out the way to a point. Yeah, okay, it was. You know, let's take where Bottas went. He didn't have to go that far over. Like, he could have very easily come off the racing line, let Lewis through, and not actually got near that mirror. But he chose not to. Fair enough, that's fine. Secondly, one driver is lying if they said they didn't know where it was, because Yuki has apparently heard over radio that it was a beaver, and then wondered why there's beavers in the Middle East. Yuki, if you heard beaver over radio and you're in Qatar Grand Prix, why are you not getting the Red Bull drive? Have a think. He did actually jokingly say as well, I know global warming's got bad, but beavers in Qatar is a new thing. In terms of my thought process on it, like, I honestly thought it was quite good to let it run at first, just to see, because obviously the mirrors aren't, you know, we're not talking the size of a spring or anything like that. You know, we are talking a plastic mirror, basically. I understand the puncture side of it, but in terms of it being utterly dangerous, it was kind of out the way. They tried to cover it under yellow flags. Obviously wasn't picked up by some of the drivers, but I just 4 laps was too long, and it just makes me go back to the thought process of Abu Dhabi 21, the thought process on other incidents whether we've thrown red flags, maybe Azerbaijan with Max Verstappen when he had his puncture, and we ended up. Was it Verstappen puncture that made us have like a 2-lap restart or something? Or something happened that made us have a 2-lap restart. You you know, like, why are we having 2-lap restarts? You know, Paul will remember races that got, you know, if it gets red flagged with 3 or 4 laps to go, you just don't bother. You know, why? It's just unlucky. It's part of racing. I just think that it feels like somebody's looking over the shoulder of the race director constantly, or there's some information that's gone out that you must play it in a certain way. And who that's come from, I don't know. I can't be certain whether that's come from the way the FAA run. And yes, Mr. President, we know it's none of our business, as you told everybody before the start of the weekend, how you run the FAA. But if you run it like that, you're running it wrongly. Definitely running it wrongly. You can tell by the way Paul and Wajid and Paul down there somewhere. Yeah, you get it. These two have both put their view across. I just feel like somebody like Rui Marquez has the experience of probably going, yes, this is what we need to do. Hang on a minute. We've got influences from behind, maybe. And also, what have we had since Charlie Whiting? We've had Michael Massey under pressure, heavily criticised on social media to the stage which, like, people threatening his life. Yes, he made a mistake, but it doesn't mean threaten his life. Every race director since then, it's like, as soon as they make a mistake, on them like something chronic. And I think that just adds another pressure. It adds another problem to it. And we're fast running out of race directors to race direct Formula One. Also, for people watching, there is a difference between a race director and a steward. So when we're thinking about the decisions for penalties, they are steward decisions, not the drivers, but the stewards, so Connolly and whoever else is there. And in terms of safety car, we are talking about the race director's decisions. So that's just a little bit of my view of it. It's really kind of just my view, personal view. You've heard Wajid's, you've heard Paul's. I think we're all kind of on the same wavelength, or at least in the same 50% side of that they got it wrong. But yeah, this is why tomorrow night we were going to do a video where you could all join us and we'll talk about the FAA. There doesn't seem much point in doing it before Abu Dhabi because, well, heck, something else is going to happen. So we're going to go through decisions. Just very quickly on this point, the FAA did release a new sort of piece explaining everything. Normal practice is for the safety car not to be deployed if there's a small amount of debris and off the racing line. A VSC would not have been... So go on.
It wasn't a small amount of debris, and it's literally the overtaking. Okay, sorry, no, I'm just... Sorry.
A VSC would not have been the solution, as the cars were spread out and not enough time to get a marshal onto the track. But then it seems like they've kind of... That there either has a... it was evident that the driver has reduced speed. Just trying to get through it all. Also, they don't know why the mirror fell off. I don't know why that was an
Who cares?
Who
fucking cares?
They put that in it. They said they don't know if it was down to the new curbing or whatever. But anyway,
I would also say on the mirror side, by the way, no penalty for that team. Yet there've been penalties for other teams, Haas particularly last year, for things falling off their car.
Yeah, very true.
British bias.
But yeah, just in general, the FAA needs to start making decisions better and more consistent. I think is the general call. Again, it's not the first time it's been called. So we will now move on to... I mean, the drivers had a call with race direction about how they should race, but maybe, the FAA president has turned around and said, it doesn't matter. it's not their opinion. But they're the ones. What was it he said? I am a driver as well.
I'm a driver as well, and then
It's like your career ladder does not make you clear that you were a driver. You may have scored World Rally Championship points at some point, but that's about it. Is all I can say.
I don't like the man. Firstly, I will apologize for if any strong language offended anyone or if anyone felt like I attacked them. It's not my point. It's just I'm watching the sport I love turn into a farcical circus, especially this season at this point with some of the decisions the FIA have got involved. This whole try to survive crap where it literally reported on like multiple times by Sky Sports. Well, if you tune into Drive to Survive, the cameras captured the fallout between Verstappen and Russell. Who cares? Like, who cares? Honestly, who gives a shit? No one I don't care. I don't care. And it's just like incredibly like I'm more frustrated because I saw Brazil where drivers where teams didn't want to put drivers on the correct tires, and they were crying, "Oh, it's too scary," and they stopped the race. You have a literal piece of carbon fiber on the overtaking point, and just gone, vibes. It's just and
again, it comes back to consistency.
It's just bullshit at this point.
Yeah.
Well, now sorry, go on, Paul.
No. I was just gonna. I mean, we'll do this obviously at another point, but in the last 12 months, the FIA have gotten rid of some incredible people that have worked at the FIA and have got massive amounts of motorsport. I'm just going to give you this quick rundown, okay? This is just this year. It's just the people they've let go this year. Natalie Robin, who was the CEO for only 18 months. She went in May.
Yeah.
Bertrand Bardre, who was the head of the audit committee, went in June. Tom Purvis, who was on the committee for audit for ethics, was also fired in June. Paolo Bassari was the compliance officer for the FIA. He was let go in June. Tim Mayer, who was the FIA senior steward. Niels Wittich, who was the F1 race director. Janet Tan, who was the deputy F2 director. Steve Nelson, who was the sporting director, Tim Goss, who was the technical director, Deborah Mayer, who was head of Commission for Women, Jacob Bangsgaard, who was Secretary General for Mobility, and Luke Skipper, who was Director of Communication. All of these people have been let go by the FA this year.
Well, they've been let go by one man, not the FA.
We will also add that you said a couple of people who have gone on ethics. The FAA are looking to change that.
Yes.
But ethics are now going to be handled by the FAA president.
Do you know, I'm just aghast at all of this. I really am.
I think
That's like Man City sitting on the board to decide about their 115 charges.
I think we'll discuss the FIA video.
Do you know who some of the people are that are in the Senate, by the way, of the FIA that don't have they basically have carte blanche to do whatever Ben Suleiman says. Do you know who those people are?
No,
I'm not aware.
We've got a Prince of Jordan. We've got Carlos Slim and Akio Toyoda, who's the chairman of Toyota. Those guys are on that Senate.
Interesting.
Unbelievable.
No wonder Haas has been going well.
Right.
We're going to have, like I say, we're going to have an FIA video. Probably just after Abu Dhabi. We might try and do it because, well, we'll have everything. Maybe we should do it with the FAA Awards Gala dinner in the background. But yeah, we're gonna move on to the decisions that we made
with our trophy as a media company of the year.
Yeah. So we're best friends. We're not gonna like Wajid said. We want to give you our views as fans. We're not like trained media professionals, so we ain't gonna dodge around too much. Well, I say we're not trained media professionals. Hi, Paul.
It's okay. I didn't take offence.
Right. Decisions made. We actually had no decisions in the sprint race. The only decision made by Lando Norris to allow Oscar Piastri through. and to help him along the way, which annoyed George Russell even more, which is strange considering he's asked for team orders to keep Lewis behind him before.
It doesn't count. It doesn't count unless you do it. Okay. If
Okay.
you do it, it's fine. If anyone else does it, Brit, we need to ban them like we did before.
So here we go. We've got a pit lane incident. If they're important things, I'm going to throw them both open to you. If not, I'll swap them open. Pit lane incident, Oscar Piastri, reconnaissance laps, weaving in between Lewis Hamilton and another car as he tried to enter the pits. Came out as a warning after the race. Paul, sounds very technical one. You've seen it in Formula One before. Is it just maybe just a little bit over eagerness?
It's fine. It's fine.
Fair enough.
Is what it is. Next one.
The next one I have here, that's a speeding in the pit. These are not in order. Okay. Let's go from...
Sorry, you've got FIA documents and you expect them to be in order?
Well, apparently I've got Lewis Hamilton speeding in the pit lane ahead of Lewis Hamilton's full start. Work that one out. But we'll go in the order they're on here. So Lewis Hamilton speeding in pit lane 92.5 kilometers an hour in what I think will be 60.
60, yes.
Yes. Oops. I slipped.
I'm behind the safety car, therefore I forgot I was in the pit lane.
Yeah.
That's all that was. That was purely one of those, he's taken his afterball. But doesn't it sum up what a terrible weekend Lewis has had? Like everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong for him. Including some of the basics, like, you know, pulling away at the start at the right time and not speeding in the pit. Like he's literally added to all the woes he already had.
I just found it hilarious. You had Lando on the radio complaining that Lewis had brake checked him. I'm like,
yeah,
clearly he hasn't. Like, I don't think
you know what a brake check. Again, as a driver though, I've often thought, I've been brake checked here. What the fuck is this guy doing in front of me? And it's one of those instant kind of in the car reactions in the moment because you sort of go, well, there was no reason for him to brake there. What the fuck was he doing? Of course, what Lando didn't realise is that he was actually going too far. So I think heat of the moment, yeah, I've often thought I've been brake checked and then actually spoken to the driver afterwards and actually nothing of the sort. It was that mistake or something happened.
To be honest, it's probably a good thing Lewis brake checked because Lando would have been doing the same speed.
Yeah, exactly. Lando would have gone through exactly the same speed probably as well. Would have had two of them.
So,
I mean, it's quite ironic that he comes up with it.
Sorry.
Go on. No,
I was just going to say, all I was going to say is, I mean, fairly, there's too many senses. There's a slam dunk in it, like, let's be honest.
Yeah, it was a drive-through, wasn't it? He picked up. Now, I don't know if anybody can remember, isn't it normally a 5-second penalty?
It's a 5-second penalty, 5 or 10 second.
So
penalty.
historically, when I had a look back at them, they've been a mixture of 10-second penalties, or there have been occasions where drivers have already made their pit stops and therefore they've added 30 seconds onto their time at the end of the race. So there have been some instances of that kind of harshness of that double wave yellow penalty. But again, they're so sporadic over the last 20 years of enforcement that it seems that mitigating circumstances have been taken into account on occasion as well. So
to add, it's 80 kilometers per hour in that pit lane.
So
he was over by a whole 12.5 kilometers an hour,
which is a lot in the sense that normally it's by 0.1 or 0.5 or a mile per hour or something because they've hit the button at the wrong time. But no, that was a proper. I mean, he knew he'd made mistakes, so it was not a big deal. On the double wave yellows, it's been a bit hit and miss in terms of the penalty, but it's in the rules. The rules actually do say it's one of the things. It's the most egregious thing that a driver can do is go full throttle through a double wave yellow, because double wave yellows is prepare to stop, not just slow down, take caution. It's a full on. Don't fuck around in this section, please. It's very dangerous. So that's why, in my mind, I was like, look, if it's that fucking dangerous, why haven't you thrown a safety car?
If only somebody hadn't done a Mick Ackerman and raised their hand through it. That would have saved you from a penalty. The next one we've got, is car 23. Alex Albon causing a collision with car 20 in turn 1, a 10-second time penalty, and 2 penalty points added. leaving him with a total of 2. In turn 1 at the Apex, car in 23, driver in car 23 oversteered, corrected, and as a result collided with Kevin Magnussen, which forced Kevin off the track at the time. Both agreed?
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, but I just think the 2
what it
penalty
is.
points seem a bit harsh. But
Oh,
yeah, all the penalties,
sorry,
all the penalties
I will
seem
say,
quite harsh.
I will say the penalty points seem quite harsh. I mean, whatever you drove into the side of him, you just control, cool. But the penalty
Yeah,
points
it's
just seem-
like, did he do it intentionally? In which case, yes, he should get penalty points. Or did he understeer in, which is a mistake? Yes, he did. It even says it in the report. If you read the report, it specifically mentions that he understeered into the car. Therefore, he didn't do it on purpose. He wasn't trying to run him out of road like other drivers have done, who haven't been given penalty points, by the way. So I was a bit like, that seems a bit harsh to me. All of the penalties seemed overly, but can you really? If you take them in isolation, are they to the letter of the law in the book? Yeah, most of them are. And are they reasonable and fair in comparison to what's in the book? Yeah, they are. It's because we've had a different race director or a different set of race directors over the last 5 years, 3 others, that have given different types of penalties for those and have actually let some of that go. That's why it seems so harsh. And Rui Marcus has just gone, nope, these are the rules.
Next one was the jump start. I've seen people show Lando's jump start from where he got away with it. Lando, I will add, did stop in the box when he did that in another race. Lewis was still rolling when the lights went green and didn't actually stop the car at any point. To be honest, he was probably hoping it would roll into a ditch somewhere the way it's been going this season. 5-second penalty didn't really affect his race in any kind of way because he was stuck behind Sergio Perez. Agreed, fair, foul.
Again, it's one of those technical things. Like it's the same as Oscar Piastri's early on in the season. He moved before the lights changed. He moved outside of his box, beyond the yellow line. Therefore, it's a black and white penalty. Unfortunately, I do feel bad for both of those guys because they both lost places as a result. Because what happened was they went, then stopped, then went again. And by the time they went again, they actually lost places off the grid. So actually, they penalised themselves. They screwed themselves. And I think when that happens, the race director should have the ability to go, okay, they've actually screwed themselves here. So there's no need for me to add another penalty to it. They've literally screwed themselves. Whereas if the whole reason we had those false start penalties was to stop people going early and getting an advantage. That was the whole reason we had those penalties brought in the first place, because there were drivers back in the day in the late 90s who were taking off too quickly and gaining a place or two at turn 1. And back then, when we didn't have DRS and it was easy to overtake, that was a massive thing to gain 2 places off the grid. And so they brought this penalty in to stop that happening. And actually now it's being used to penalise drivers who are already penalised, which I don't really feel like that's what the original penalty was supposed to do.
No, I agree. But I do think if it's a jump start, you've got to...
Yeah, it's a technical infringement. So unfortunately, it's got to be applied.
We'll do the next one, which is the most controversial one probably of the Grand Prix. Lando Norris failing to slow under double yellow. Lando Norris, car 4, failing to slow under double waved yellow flags. Got a 10-second stop-go penalty for it, and also 3 penalty points because of it being a safety thing. Wajid, your view on it? We saw it from Anthony Davidson. It's kind of a slam dunk, but then we had that opinion of, oh, well, Max is a 4-time world champion, so he knows how to lift without losing speed.
I don't give a shit what Anthony Davidson. He's fucking sucked as a driver. Shut the fuck up. Like, I don't give a shit about his opinion. It's a penalty, and to be honest, I'm glad we finally saw a 10-second stop go for something, because we've only been screaming out for a long time. And you know what? Right, he got punished regardless of what the FIA did about the wing mirror. He got punished. Right, prepared to stop. He kept his foot down. I'm glad we see 10-second stop go. The only reason people are complaining is because, like Paul said, is the disparity between Massey, Niels, and Marquez over the last 3 years, which is like, oh well, this probably would have been a 5 second, and he could have overtaken. But I guarantee the reason people are the bigger reason people be annoyed is, oh, we got robbed of a grandstand finish. The only person you got to blame for that is Lando Norris. That's the only person you got to. That's the only person you got to blame. I'm glad that harsher penalties are being applied to drivers. Long may it continue. Maybe driving standards will now pick up, and we won't get ridiculous driving, high risk driving if this is the standard. But if this is going to be the standard, this is the standard that needs to be maintained. I don't want it I don't want the yo-yo roller coaster up and down where it's going to take vehicular assault to get a penalty. Like, if this is the standard, then this is the standard. Slam dunk penalty. Don't care if it ruined the race. Your fault, Lando.
Yeah, Paul.
I pretty much agree. I always feel that if the race director has chosen to make that a double waved yellow area, then he's determined that the area in question, regardless of what it is, whether it's debris, a car, a person, whatever it might be, is putting the drivers' lives at risk, and therefore has issued a double waved yellow for that area. And if the drivers don't pay attention to that, then as far as I'm concerned, they have no right to go and moan at the FIA or the stewards or the race director about safety, because you've literally just committed a cardinal sin of driving flat out through a double waved yellow section. And you don't know if that section is safe or not. You've got to trust that the race director has made that decision for you on your behalf to keep you safe. And if you're going to ignore that, blatantly ignore it, as Lando did, then you deserve whatever the punishment is. And frankly, I'm also glad that they bring back a harsher penalty for these things, because hopefully it also sends a warning to the other drivers that they can't do that and they have to pay full attention. Like, you should be really hyper alert. When there's a double wave yellow, you should be already thinking, fuck, that could be a massive accident. It could be someone's hurt. It could be a steward. It could be a crowd member. It could be debris. It could be a wheel. It could be anything. I better slow down here and take it easy through here. And if that loses you a few seconds, then it loses you a few seconds. You can make them up around the rest of the track under the safety car or the VSC. Not a big deal. But you really need to pay attention to that. There are a couple of mitigating circumstances for Lando. One is that there weren't any actual physical double waved yellows in that area. So he's come round for the second lap. He hasn't seen them. I get it, but he'd already been told on the radio that it's a double waved yellow section. Please make sure you lift, by his team. So he's on his own when he does that the second time round. And the light system was also a solid yellow at that point that he went through, rather than a double waved yellow. So yes, there are some mitigating circumstances that he can sort of go, well, you need to have those things there. And he's right. We should have those things on the track as well. But that doesn't excuse what he actually did. And I'm not even sure he meant to do it as such. I just think it was one of those, he came around the second lap after the first one, didn't see any flags and thought he was fine. And then only afterwards, he's probably thought, shit, I'm probably going to get in trouble for that. And as Wajid has already said, the consistency is what we're concerned about. But actually, I think when it's a safety thing like that, it's hard to argue that you can't get a penalty.
I would like to throw out there to people as well, the race direction for the TV actually showed the wrong lap as well during the race, which actually probably caused more controversy on social media, because everyone was like, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Max hasn't lifted and all that. So that's probably didn't help the situation.
Yeah. I saw another one that said, they didn't tell Lando until after he'd gone through the section. And I was like, that's wrong as well, because what they actually showed live was they showed a delayed radio message, which is delayed by about 30 seconds. So yes, he was at turn 5 when you heard the radio message, but that's not when it was actually made. It was made before he got to the main straight. It's just that they played it when he was in turn 5, delayed, which made some people think, they hadn't told him in time. But that was wrong as well. So yeah.
So we also had 2 more, which was George Russell failing to maintain distance behind the safety car, picking up a 5-second time penalty and a penalty point for that, which I don't see where a penalty point comes on. But he was more than 20. He's apparently more than 20 car lengths behind. And then we also had one which sort of drifted into the wayside, which was Sergio Perez spinning on the opening lap and rejoining dangerously. Well, I don't see how you can rejoin dangerously when the whole pack's already gone past you.
Yeah.
But a very strange one there. I don't think we even need to comment on that. But it's really weird how that come through when all he's trying to do is rejoin the circuit. Yet, so what I'm getting from most of this is the FAA stewarding decisions were correct, but then they fundamentally got something wrong in how race direction should be run. Is that right?
Not entirely. I feel like this was Rui Marquez saying to the stewards, and keep in mind, by the way, that they've lost a couple of very experienced stewards in that room as well. So some of the bigger names in that steward room would have also been fairly new. I think as a result of it being a brand new team of people with very little experience between them in Formula One, I think what they've actually actively decided to do, and I'm guessing, I don't know this for sure, I'm guessing that what's happened is they've gone, look, we can't afford to use common sense. We can't afford to be, this looks okay to us, we'll let that go. That doesn't look okay to us, we'll penalise them. We have to do this by the book because Niels isn't here. We've got no one else that we can turn to. We've got no backup. We've got an inexperienced set of stewards, an inexperienced race director. Let's do it by the book. And they mainly have, actually. The only one that they didn't really do by the book, weirdly, was the one-place grid penalty for Max Verstappen, which should have been a three grid place penalty if you follow the letter of the law. So I think they've tried to just be less controversial by saying, well, look, it's in the book and it's in the sporting code or it's in the rules, and therefore, sorry, you can't blame us.
Which is the way it should be.
Which is the way it should be. But I think what we've missed maybe over the last 4 or 5 years with Charlie and with Michael and then with Niels and with Freitas to a degree is that they have used some modicum of common sense, particularly around the driver penalty points, because the penalty points haven't been given out as liberally as they were in Qatar ever, as far as I can remember. I don't remember anyone ever getting a 1-point penalty for not maintaining distance behind the safety car. I don't remember anyone getting 3 points for going through a double wave yellow. I don't remember anyone getting a penalty point for rejoining the track when there was no one coming in a bad way. I've never seen these penalty points before, but they are in the sporting code. So you're like, well, okay, then they've got away with it for a long time, and now they've got a strict headmaster.
Very true. I think that's everything covered FIA way. I did say we'd try and stick to Qatar, and we'll fundamentally look at the FIA over the winter. I'm just going to say, unfortunately, everybody, right now, nobody's standing against him next year for re-election. You're going to have another 4 years of this.
Apply.
Don't want a hassle.
Can we get enough people to vote for one of us from the iRacing community?
We've got one.
If someone's willing to stand.
We've got one more candidate who could be looking at his final Grand Prix coming up. So we're not yet another one. But yeah, it is actually technically not another one. Yeah, Sergio Perez, final Grand Prix coming up. He's got to make his own decision. Allegedly. Yes. According to Red Bull, it's down to him. Well, you've got a race car to drive and you're getting paid millions. I mean, it's not a tough decision, is it, Sergio? I'm going to keep this short because obviously, well, it has been as short as the success in Sergio Perez's season. What's going to happen in Abu Dhabi in terms of Sergio Perez? Do we think he's going to announce it before he starts, or is he going to do Daniel Ricciardo? Will we see him in F1 next year? And if not, how's the seats going to fall? Wajid, do you want to go first?
Checo's still in that seat next year.
Okay.
End of.
Short but sweet.
No, I don't care if they got that break clause or not. He's still in that seat next year because Carlos Slim's finances still way too much for that. Still way too much for that team. And if these guys allegedly had their arm twisted by Liberty Media when it came to they were going to put Danny Rick in the car from the summer because they were bothered about the Mexico Grand Prix ticket sales. What's there to say there's not going to be any external involvement come December, January time?
Fair.
Paul,
Paul?
sorry, Paul, to you.
The first thing to talk about is the fact that I've been saying I think he would make it through to the season. So I'm glad I was right about that in one way. But the same thing applies now that applied earlier on in the season when we were talking about whether he should be replaced or not. I think there's no doubt that the majority of the fans believe he should be replaced. Should have been replaced during the season and should definitely be replaced for the start of next season. But I'm with Wajid. I think you find he turns up to F1 75 live and then he goes off to testing and we go to the first race of next season and he's on the grid. And I think it probably depends 4 or 5 into the races next year as to whether they replace him or not. But even then, we're back to the same issues, right? Those issues don't go away. In fact, they get worse for Red Bull because at the moment, they're basically saying we don't have anyone that's good enough to replace him. Yuki Tsunoda has been there for 4 years. We know what his ceiling is, and we don't think his ceiling is good enough for our second seat. We know that Lawson has now joined, and he's now, the dog's bollocks, and Red Bull love him. But he hasn't beaten Tsunoda in the same car. But maybe his ceiling is higher. Okay, I could see that, but he still hasn't done it. Isaac Hadjar potentially could be crowned F2 world champion at the weekend. They've paid no attention to that man whatsoever. In fact, they've dumpstered him into the RB junior team for the Abu Dhabi stuff. They haven't even put him in the main car for the testing. So they obviously don't trust him. Who else have they got left in their system that they could go and promote to the main team right now? And the answer is no one. They're not going to put Ricardo in there after firing him. So they've got no one. They've literally got no one. And yet they had a chance to sign Carlos Sainz earlier on in the season and do exactly all the things that they've been talking about, the things that they wanted Perez to do this season and for next season. And he's already cost them a title this year. Had he done a reasonably better job and scored the same amount of points as, say, George Russell, they would be crowned champions of the constructors already this season. So it's not like they've missed out a little bit or he's got unlucky. The guy's scored less points than Zhou Guanyu in the last 6 races, for crying out loud. It's a travesty that he's in that car wasting that amount of talent and wasting that ability on that car. I want someone else in that car. I want someone that can deliver and can be part of that top 8 team to make it more competitive. I don't know who that person is because they've basically shot themselves in the foot now. It's not Colapinto. It's not Isaac Hadjar. It's not Yuki Tsunoda. It's not Liam Lawson. It's not any of the drivers that they've been talking about. It's Carlos Sainz. So unless they go and buy him out of his Williams contract now, what are they going to do next year if Perez doesn't turn up? If after 5 or 6 races he doesn't do it, who are they going to get? Because no, they don't want any of the other people. The only other person they could have got is Bottas as a steady number 2. And he's had the worst season he's ever had in F1 this season. And 5-6 races into next season, he'll be sunning himself on a beach 14 stone. He's not going to be able to get in the car.
I'll be honest, it could be Sergio's last race. I think it possibly will be. In my opinion, I expect we'll see Liam Lawson in there and Isaac Hadjar had a very weird press conference after the feature race on Sunday. Yeah, on Sunday about here, I can't tell you what's going on and all this ready for next season. I feel Hadjar will be in the RB with Yuki and Liam will be in the Red Bull. That's not the best thing for Red Bull because Liam's already proved he's feisty and he's not going to just move out the way. That's the kind of number 2 Red Bull want. I also think
it's not.
Not all the time that Max is there. I don't think it is.
It's not. Yeah. Not with Max.
I think if they wanted that, they would have gone and got Carlos Sainz because he would have given Max a really good run for his money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Close to him. They would have been feisty. They would have argued.
Yeah, in terms of
Liam, why would they not just go and get that? And then now you say they want to get Liam for that. Well, they had a better option than that.
What I'm saying is they will take Liam, but I don't think it's the right option because he is feisty. I'm not saying he's quick enough, or he won't crash the car. But if them two get in a battle, he's going to elbows out, and
Yeah,
that's
but that's
not
what I'm
what they
saying,
want.
David. If they didn't take Carlos Sainz, why would they take Liam Lawson when they're almost a similar kind of feisty driver? They're not going to do it. Because they don't want to upset the apple cart with Matt. If they wanted to upset the apple cart and put him under pressure and stop him holding them to ransom, they'd have put Carlos Sainz in that car. They didn't, because they don't want to upset him. They want to try and keep him happy and try and hopefully get him to sign another long deal with them.
Yeah,
and they're not going to do it.
I agree. I just think, listening to rumours and everything, that Liam will take that seat. But there is one other, and I still think there is something sus about it not being spoke about. He's being left, he retired from Formula One, left RB. They're still not talking about Daniel Ricciardo. And I just think all these messages of, oh yeah, he's sunning himself, oh he's doing this, oh he's doing that. There's no way Daniel Ricciardo isn't keeping himself at least race fit to take an opportunity if it comes. And obviously there's a lot of rumours about him going back to Cadillac in 2026. Could see that. The American market would love it. But part of me just sees him not going to Cadillac and just being, whether he's in that Red Bull seat from the start or at some point next season to replace Perez. I don't know why. I just see it.
I just think this Danny Rick swan song bullshit thing needs to end.
No, I understand why a lot of people don't believe it.
By the way, I'm not saying you.
Yeah.
I'm just genuinely saying that, like,
I think they just need to come out and say Daniel will not race for us again. That's what I think everybody just needs to hear.
But they've said that, though.
Well, they haven't.
I don't. They have. They literally issued a press statement after he left RB and said that he'll become an ambassador for Red Bull, and that's it. He's done with the teams, and they wanted to thank him for his time and all the rest of it. And
they also said he's still in the Red Bull drive pool.
Yeah, I think that's a meritorious position rather than an actual, like, we can use him for something. It was more to stop them getting bad publicity for firing and getting rid of him, basically.
Maybe.
But if they're going to demote him from RB, the junior team, why would they a year later, when he's even less likely to be competitive, why would they bring him back to the main one?
I don't think he lost his drive because he was demoted. I think he lost his drive because of Liam Lawson's contract saying you need to do so many races.
If anyone should be angry about Liberty Media's alleged meddling in Checo Perez's seat, it should be Danny Rick. Because after Belgium, what did every single person report? Danny Rick will be in that seat after the summer break. Danny Rick will be in that seat.
Yeah.
It was like the worst kept secret. And literally 3 days later, no, we're happy with Checo, when there was a quite literal photo and video of Danny Rick, Max Verstappen, Christian Horner walking out of the Red Bull motorhome, hand in hand, big smiling, going, follow the yellow brick road, follow, like. So,
I don't want to ask which one was Toto. But yeah, no, I do get what you're saying.
Helmut Marko. Well, we'll see. I'm with Paul in the sense of, as long as Maximilian Verstappen is your number one driver, you are never going to have a competitive second driver in that car, because because there's too much political power. The Verstappens have too much political power in that Red Bull seat. And now I understand what you're saying in terms of go get a Carlos Sainz, get stuff like that. People, they might openly say, oh, we believe in Lawson's potential. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's a case of this kid has got a seat that he never thought he'd get, / oh my God, look at the opportunity I'd be given. And if he'll get his win, oh yeah, well done, I like it. but when push comes to shove, it'll be like, go back to your corner, go back to your box. Thank you very much for playing. Max needs to win 5, and that's what
Yeah.
it come down to, in my opinion. Like we said, I don't know how if you guys agree, disagree with
No,
it, but that's just my opinion on the take.
I get what you're saying. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, we'll find out probably in the next 48 hours. Because I feel like Sergio, if he's going to retire, he's going to turn around and say, "This is my last race. You know, I want to live it."
I still feel that if he was going to do that, he'd have done it in Mexico.
Yeah, it is that. But maybe he thought his form was going to come back, and it did for Azerbaijan for most of the race.
Really?
As we're now 2 hours into this podcast, see, we can fill them, can't we? We'll very quickly move on, just so in case we haven't got time. Abu Dhabi, final race of the season, prediction time. Wajid, are you ready with the keyboard?
Yes, I am.
I don't know why we've still got the press thing up. We have got a prediction one somewhere. I'm sure we have. No, we haven't. Okay, well, we'll just get rid of that. And we can get rid of that as well. Right, predictions for... Instead of Perez makes a decision, Paul, make a decision. Qualifying, top 5.
Excuse me. Okay, top 5 qualifying. I'm going to go with...
Just so we can go over last week's predictions.
Of course, yes, sorry.
Yes. Your predictions for Qatar for qualifying last week were Leclerc in 5th. You had Norris in 4th. You had George Russell in 3rd. You had Max Verstappen in 2nd. And do you want to take a guess who you had in 1st, Paul? Or do you remember?
Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Well, you get 1 point for 5th place, Charles Leclerc.
Mr. Magpie.
Yeah.
You yourself had Alonso in 5th. How did that work out for you?
He was 8th and got 7th.
Yeah, how did that work out for you?
With a GP3 engine.
You had Verstappen in 4th.
Yeah. Okay.
You had Leclerc in 3rd.
Okay.
You had Hamilton in 2nd.
Okay.
And you had Norris 1st.
Meh.
Don't
What
worry,
about
I didn't do much better. I had Sainz in 5th.
Yeah.
I had Russell in 4th. I had Verstappen in 3rd. I had Leclerc 2nd. I had Norris 1st.
So I was the only one that got a point in qualifying. Good. Okay.
1 out of 15.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant.
quickly to the race. Myself, I had Hamilton in 5th. Great job, Waj. How'd that go for you? I had Russell in 4th. I had Piastri 3rd.
Wow.
Ooh.
I had Verstappen 2nd. And I had Norris 1st.
Well, 2.
Right. 2 points, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Magpie, yourself, you had Russell in 5th. You had Piastri in 4th. You had Norris in 3rd. You had Leclerc 2nd. And you had Hamilton 1st.
And one for...
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking with that one.
Yep. And finally, Paul, you had Russell in 5th. You had Norris in 4th. You had Piastri 3rd. So you got 1. Verstappen in 2nd. And Lewis Hamilton winning the Grand Prix.
So that means 2 of us predicted Hamilton to win, and we got that wrong. But Paul actually wins this week with 3 points out of a possible 10. and as a team, we got 3, 4, 5.
5 out of 30. 6 out of 30.
6 out of 30.
Yeah.
We're amazing at these. So
Brilliant at it. Right.
yeah. So ESPN bet, like, send it, like, sponsorship.
Yeah.
Send it our way.
Yeah, just get ready. Here we go.
Sky bet, like, like, we're amazing at this, guys.
Abu Dhabi prediction time. Paul, you can predict first. Your decision.
Okay, so top 5 qualifying.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, I will go with... I will go Piastri 5th. Leclerc 4th. Russell 3rd. Verstappen 2nd. And Norris 1st.
No Hamilton this week.
No. He let me down so badly last week. I'm not doing it this week. And now he'll go and win.
Mr. Magpie, if you'd like to go next, please.
as I don't want to screw over Lewis Hamilton for his final race with Mercedes, I am going to go for a Q1 knockout. Well, I'll put him on pole. Anyway, 5th place, I will go for Sites.
Yep.
Or do I?
Or not?
Yeah, Carlos Sites 5th. 4th will be George Russell. 3rd will be Charles Leclerc.
Mm-hmm.
2nd will be Lando Norris. And pole will be Max Verstappen. And that's probably the only time ever I've predicted a pole position for Max Verstappen. Hello, Carls.
So for myself, I'm going to go Norris in 5th. I'm going to go Sainz in 4th. Excuse me. I'm going to go Verstappen in 3rd. I'm going to go Piastri 2nd. I'm going to go Leclerc 1st.
Wow.
Telling you, man. I've got Ferrari winning the.
Yeah.
I've got Ferrari winning the
Yeah.
constructors. So
Yeah, fair play. Fair play.
So yeah, that's our qualifying predictions for Abu Dhabi, and as always, we will go in the reverse order for for the race.
Yeah,
So-
also put our predictions in reverse order and we might actually get it right.
Yeah, maybe we might score more than 3 points.
We got 10%. It's more than you get in a Black Friday sale.
Yeah, there you go.
I have Russell in 5th. I have.
So is
Norris
this
in-
for race now?
Yeah, this is the race. Sorry.
Okay, so you're going Russell in 5th. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going Norris 4th. I'm going Sainz in 3rd. I'm going Verstappen 2nd, and I'm going Leclerc in 1st, which will mathematically give Ferrari because I don't have I've got Piastri finishing outside the points, so that should give Ferrari, based on my maths, the constructors world title.
Okay, so top 5. I'm going to go for we're going to go Piastri in 5th. Yeah, we're going to go Piastri in 5th. Definitely Piastri 5th. 4th will be for car 44.
Fair play.
Lewis Hamilton on his final Mercedes, just missing out on a podium because all of a sudden they'll give him a hypercar. 3rd will be Max Verstappen. 2nd, 3rd Max, 2nd Lando. Yeah, 3rd Max, 2nd Lando, 1st Charles Leclerc.
So Ferrari, who have never won in Abu Dhabi, all of a sudden have two of us predicting a win.
Yeah.
Sorted.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Is it a hat trick?
I don't think so, surprisingly.
Right, I will go. I think this is going to be a tense last race for McLaren. I think they're going to be too tense for it, but I think they'll scrape it home. So I'm going to go with.
Hang on, was that a joke about us being in the desert and tents?
Yeah, but it flew over most people said it's fine. I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the surprise. I'm going to go with 5th will be Sergio Perez.
That's not a surprise. That's a shocker.
Yeah,
Sorry, you cut out slides for me. Who did you say 5th? Sorry.
Sergio Perez will be 5th.
Jeez. Jeez. Okay.
Can you remember how to spell Perez? We haven't had to spell it for a while.
I've had to Google it.
Yeah. I will go George Russell 4th.
Yep.
I'll go Lando Norris third,
Yep.
Charles Leclerc second, and Max Verstappen to win. To make it 5 in a row. And stop Ferrari from ever winning in Abu Dhabi.
So looking at these predictions, we all know. Hang on. Yeah. So basically, Hamilton's going to win. Gasly's going to be second, and Albon in third.
With Alonso in fourth. And Stroll in the top 3 in qualifying.
Hey, nobody ever forgets Yuki's 4th place. Oh yeah, they do, because it was 2021, and nobody ever remembers that race. I mean, what a dull and boring race that one was. Yeah, so there's our predictions.
And
Wow.
there's our
We're normally wrong.
There's our Qatar GP review.
Yeah. This was a short review on the Qatar Grand Prix. Probably record podcast time of 2 hours 10 minutes. Yes, we're good at this, aren't we? But hey, if you like this, more of you are watching it than ever before, which is great. If you are watching it on YouTube, hit that subscribe button to see more of them. Hit the like button, that helps out. Leave a comment below if you want to put your predictions for the Grand Prix. To be fair, you probably want to if you've got this far through the podcast, because that's commitment in itself, and you're probably going to predict them better than us. If you are watching on Twitch, or yeah, hi overtaking lane, thank you for tuning in. If you're over on Twitch, please hit that follow button. We're almost at 460 followers. We wouldn't mind making 475 by Christmas. Might be a bit of a challenge, that. And if you obviously want to support the stream, you can do through subs or bits or whatever else you've got in your back pocket. Depends what you find down the back of the sofa. And all the money, anything raised, does go back towards paying these 2 fees to come on the podcast. Yes, exactly. There's no fee. I can see Wajid going, I haven't seen any money yet. And I've been here 2 years.
I threw out the whole I threw out the whole financial incentive of this show a long time ago, believe me.
Obviously,
I'm just happy to be here.
If there's things you want us to talk about in the winter break, let us know. Feel free to put comments below. We're already going to do Christmas special at some point, and FAA special and things like that. So pop your comments, questions down below. We'll try and answer them. Well, Paul, thank you for joining us again for this. I swear these are getting shorter, honest.
As always, a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as always. And Wajid, thank you for joining us as always.
As always. Thank you very much.
Luckily, you weren't off to the gym or revising this week, so we've managed to fit the whole thing in. But 2 hours 13 is still longer than the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, even if it got run over. So enjoy Abu Dhabi, and we'll see you probably next Tuesday for a review show in Abu Dhabi. See you then.